We also want to make sure that right now in this time when we have synchronous and asynchronous online learning happening, in many cases, we are still meeting with our students synchronously through one of these online tools, such as Google Meet or Zoom. In some situations, we are sending work and opportunities for our students to practice their math concepts asynchronously. That means I might post it to a Google Classroom, or I might share it in Seesaw. When I'm teaching math online, which is a reality that many of us are facing right now, I know that some of the tools we're talking about today might be synchronous tools, things that we do live with our kids, and some of them might be asynchronous tools, things that we post for our students to work on in their own time. I want to play a quick little activity, and that is which one doesn't belong. Because activities such as WODB, which one doesn't belong, help develop numeracy in our young learners. You'll notice on the screen I have placed 4 images. There's 4 images. And I ask the question, which one doesn't belong? And as you analyze, you might notice right away, well, what are the criteria, right? What are you looking for? But with kids, oftentimes I don't give them any parameters, right? Which one doesn't belong? And it's about noticing structure, noticing patterns, finding similarities and differences. So someone might say, well, the red ones in the upper left-hand quadrant don't belong because they're red and the other ones are all green. Someone else might say, oh, the ones in the bottom right-hand corner don't belong because they're solid and the others are striped. Someone might notice that there are 3 in one of the pictures, and someone might notice that the bottom one has a different shape altogether. They may use some math vocabulary like edges and vertices instead of curves. We can do this WODB activity as a way to spark mathematical thinking and really just get our students looking at, and more importantly, talking about math. WODB. Now that image I just shared, as well as many others, can be found at the website wodb.ca. I'd love to take a minute to give you a quick little tour of this website. When I get here, I notice that there are a number of resources available. I see that I can scroll and there are some different opportunities to do WODB. When it comes to the young learners, my favorite right now is the one here that says shapes. When I click on shapes, there are many, many examples of WODB starters that are absolutely appropriate for our young learners. As I scroll through, I see a number of images I can pull up on my screen. Now, at a very basic level, I might zoom this up on my board in class with my students and simply pose the question, hey guys, which one doesn't belong? And I can ask my friends to tell me which one doesn't belong. And hopefully I also ask them to tell me why. I want to make sure that my students recognize those patterns, right? They look for repeated reasoning, but more importantly, I want them to construct a viable argument, right? Talking about those math practices, WODB really does help our students have opportunities to practice talking about math, noticing patterns, noticing similarities and difference. As I scroll through here, you see there are a number. Some are based on patterns, some have shapes, some are things in real life, photos, and it is just an opportunity. So with very little prep on the teacher's part, at a base level, I can come to the website, I can select an image, I can bring it up to my class and say, okay, friends, which one doesn't belong? Now, if I'm live in person with my students, I might have them pair share so they each get an opportunity to explain their why. And I'm going to now show you some ways I might use WODB in an online setting as well. When I use WODB, I could do the same thing in my Zoom call as I could do live. I might just show it on the screen and ask my students to select one. Some other options come up though. One is one of my favorite tools, and that is Seesaw. Let's take a quick look of how we might pair WODB and the online learning tool Seesaw. Take a look at this and think, how does this example kick that WODB activity up just a little bit?
This one doesn't belong because the other ones are white and this one is shaded.
This one doesn't belong because the other ones are white and this one is shaded. I love that Seesaw allows me to post an image just like the other WODB images we found at wodb.ca. And then I get an extra layer. The student was able to mark on the page. Now, sometimes students might mark other ways, like they might write a 4, a 4, a 4, and a 5 if they were counting the sides. Sometimes I might have students mark the angles or the student circled. Sometimes they'll check mark, but it's a way for students to answer the question. But more importantly, Seesaw's very easy microphone tool allowed this learner to explain her thinking. She constructed her argument. She told us why that one didn't belong. So WODB. When I think about WODB, and then I think about the math practices, right? Makes sense. Persevere in solving your problems. Reasoning abstractly and quantitatively. In this example, the student might just look at it. They might count the numbers of sides. They might observe the color. They can use different layers of reasoning, sometimes with numbers, sometimes not. We listened how they construct an arguments. We know that they can model. We know that they can this over. Use the tools. We use that microphone tool in that example, right? We know that attending to precision, looking at all the options, all the opportunities there, making use of structure, noticing the similarities, finding and expressing regularity, right? Repeated reasoning, finding the patterns. All of these math practices are being engaged with when we do a WODB, and even more so when we partner it with Seesaw, we're able to capture it, really showing how those numeracy skills, right? How the numeracy skills are being used. Again, the practice standards, the math practices really are the tools, the actions that help develop numeracy. I'd love to show a couple more examples from Seesaw of how we can show math thinking, how we might see numeracy coming together, how students are able to explain their thinking. Let's take a quick look.
Three cracks in two octopus makes 5 creatures and dusty.
So in this example, my friend built a model. Practice standard, right? Modeling with mathematics, practice standard 4. You see that they were able to develop a math story, able to drag some creatures out onto the canvas. They showed parts and wholes using the number bonds there, right? Representing how those parts and wholes go together. I see the equation at the bottom, making sure that we're attending to precision there. We're showing this abstractly and quantitatively through the image representations as well as the number representations, and the student was able to explain it. I want to play this for you one more time, and this time as you listen, second read, listen for the vocabulary this student uses.
Three cracks in two octopus makes 5 creatures and dusty.
So sometimes teachers will notice right away that my friend said 2, no, 3. So some self-correcting happened there. And we can tell that this student is still learning English. Some of the words weren't exactly precise, but how lovely that I'm able to have this sample of this English learner's language. I appreciate that he said uh, makes 5 creatures, could have said animals, could have said things, makes 5 creatures, and then he finished it with that preposition, in the sea. We are able to observe so much of this learner's numeracy and his understanding of this mathematical concept, and we can hear his voice as well. Seesaw allows us to do that. Now, this example here is one from the Seesaw Activity Library. Have to give a shout out to my friend Coach Ben, who creates and shares activities to a free library in Seesaw.